What is it like being a traditionalist Catholic living in Israel? Honestly, meh. It's not really that different from back home, except in some practical matters, it is easier to get to the sacraments, even though there is not strictly as much of an SSPX presence. So, I thought I'd talk about 4 things that a lot of people might think about. I think it's worth talking about. 1, how I get treated when people find I'm a traditionalist Catholic. 2, sacrament. 2, what sacramental life is like, and how difficult that is. 3, what's the traditionalist Catholic community like? Because there are rad trads here, believe it or not. And 4, SSPX visits, because I think that's something that's worth talking about. So, how do I get treated when people find out I am a traditionalist Roman Catholic? Now, I had some people telling me that when I came to Israel and Jewish people find out that I was a Christian and a traditionalist Roman Catholic, that I get spat on. I had people telling me the Muslims would try to kill me, the Palestinians would all want me dead, etc. None of that has been the case at all. And in case you're wondering, no, I have not been hiding my faith. I am very open about what I believe. I say I'm traditional Roman Catholic. Here's what I believe, etc., etc. They're like, meh. As a traditionalist Catholic, I basically get seen as one of the many, many, many conservative, ultra-right, ultra-conservative religious people in Israel. Therefore, like, if you believe, I believe outside the big C Catholic Church there is no salvation. Ecumenism is a sin, etc. I barely even qualify as conservative religious here, essentially, even with all traditional Catholic doctrine. Now, there have been some people now, I will say this, there is a certain mild ecumenical tendency in Israel, in the sense that religion is kind of the thing here. It's kind of the thing everyone wants to see. And so, everyone should go, bend the religious rules a bit and witness and take part in other religious events. I've seen Orthodox Jews attend Catholic services even though they're not supposed to. And unfortunately, I have seen many Christians here take part in both interdenominational worship and interfaith worship, unfortunately. That being said, when I tell people I am a trad cath, SSPXer, like, I remember there was a Messianic Jewish woman who raised her eyebrows when I told her I only think big C Catholics are saved. She thought that was kind of like mean to other Christians, but it wasn't that big of a deal. It was not taken personally or anything like that. The closest thing I've had to an incident was, I think there was an Orthodox Jewish man. I had my rosary beads out. I kind of grown my stela out. So he said, "Hey, what are you holding? What's this?" And I held up my rosary and said, "Well, I'm Christian. I'm going to church on Sunday. This is my rosary." When he saw the crucifix, he said, "Oh," and just walked away. I kind of thought he may have thought I may have been a Muslim or something like that, and which is not great in charity, but like, no one really, I find, especially if you come here as a Western Christian, no one really cares that much. That being said, there is certainly a difference between the native trad cath population and me coming in as a visitor. It's a lot more complicated than you would even expect, by the way, for the local population, and I'll say why in a little bit. Number 2, the sacraments. I rely on Eastern Catholic churches to go to the sacraments when I'm here. There is not a solid SSPX presence. There is a TLM community, but I've got some issues with it specifically and how they approach certain things here. Again, not attacking them or anyone. I'm just saying that I personally have some issues with some of the theology there. But I generally rely more on Eastern Catholic masses, which honestly, it's kind of like, it does take effort. Because not all the Eastern Catholic churches are operational 100% of the time. I think I got one that has Mass daily, and I get to go to confession more or less regularly. It's like, oh, there's a nice you're in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. There's an Eastern Catholic church in town that has mass every Sunday. You go to confession there because it's like the one local Catholic church. Essentially, think like if you're a Novus Catholic, there is a good okay There's a good okay parish. You don't have any problems with it. It's within like half an hour by bus or tram or something like that, and you just go there, and it's not a huge. It doesn't cost you an arm or leg to get there. You just go normally. That is essentially what it is like living in Jerusalem. If you're a Novus Ordo non-attendee. If you now again, there is a TLM community, and there are comparatively reverent Novus Ordos. That being said, some of these do have issues as well. That being said, I've not found it overly difficult to get to the sacraments on a more or less moderately weekly basis. Sometimes I try to avoid as much as I can. Sometimes I have courses I have to take, and one of them occasionally they have a course on a class on a Sunday morning, which I hate. Thankfully, this is not very often, and I do have the option of going to mass every week, consistently, and even multiple times during the week. That leads me. But that being said, if you did come here as a student or as a tourist and you're not coming with a group, it will really rely on what your sacramental life will be like. Will kind of depend on your position as a trad cath. We don't have regular SSPX presence. There's a regular TLM community who have amazing people. I'm going to say that right now. There is Reverend Novus Ordos, if that's the thing. There's also Eastern Rite Catholics, or maybe you're just a strict hardliner and you'll just pray from a Sunday Missal. But for the most part, there would be options if you come here, even without a group, for at least bare bones validity and basic reverence. Now that leads to number 3, what is the traditionalist community like? For starters, there is actually a community of traditional Catholics here. There is a TLM community here with a priest of the priestly fraternity of St. Peter, and a traditional Dominican priest. They would be definitely unicum cum. They would be under the local patriarch and diocese, not SSPX affiliated, not independent affiliated. To my knowledge, there is no independent Civicantes bishops here, and there is no permanent SSPX presence here, though there is an SSPX pilgrimages. There are SSPX pilgrimages that do come here. It can be really hard coordinating with them to get to the sacraments. It is doable though, but it is very infrequent. More on that later. But the traditional community here is very interesting, is how I'll put it. For starters, I'll put it this way. I remember telling someone I went to Christmas dinner with this traditional community, to someone at my local university, had Christmas dinner with them, and they said, oh, they must be mostly Arab Palestinian Christians. Most of the trad community here is, they are mixed, as far as there's both Arab-speaking trad caths, and there are Jewish trad caths, but I remember sitting in at one of their masses, and it's a small group, but it does appear to be Jewish majority. Is certainly the tendency. They are every bit as hardline trad. They are what you would expect from a diocesan fraternity of St. Peter parish back home. You've got the right wing trad cath who's crypto SSPX. You got the moderate trad cath who wants to form the church from within. You got unfortunately the leftist TLM is lovely, but I just want wokeness, and I don't believe in outside the church is no salvation TLM people who are in that mix as well. So that's certainly my experience. There's lots of people, and you get everything in between. Now, identity-wise, these people are definitely identify culturally and ethnically, and they are as being Jewish. Big shock when you get baptized. Your ethnic group and your ethnicity and your culture does not change. Like, I always tell people, I am very much culturally Baptist and Pentecostal, because that's my upbringing, that's my culture, that's kind of how I approach things, in a very Canadian context, definitely not American. But that does inform my culture, even though it is no longer my religion. The same thing with people who are Jewish. I remember, to quote one of the guys who had me over for dinner, great guy, he said, if the government comes to me and they ask me if I'm a Christian and a Catholic, I will tell them the truth. I will say yes. If they ask me, are you a Jew? I will say, yes, I am. That's the truth. That is very much the attitude. And there can be some political issues with converts to Judaism here. I've heard it from some priests that they are nervous about baptizing converts from Judaism and other religions into Christianity here because they're afraid of not having their visas renewed. That being said, and I've heard this from Israeli Jews who are also traditionalist Catholic, and I'm talking about people who fully support the TLM. We're not talking woke Catholics, we're talking rad trads here. Fraternity of St. Peter aligned. They say, look, there is no law against becoming Christian here. There is no law against proselytizing here. There's only a law that says you cannot bribe a child with money to join another religion, and that's it. Strictly speaking on the books. To which a priest who responded to that said, yeah, but when the time comes to renew your visa, they tend to seem to forget that. It's again, I'm just reporting that. That being said, honestly, most of the people most of the trad community says it's quite. Most of the trad community here is Jewish. They are Israeli Jews, and they are very proud of their culture and heritage. And there are some Palestinian trad cats here, and they are equally proud of their Palestinian heritage. And sometimes in group chats they can get into a bit of arguing, though it never gets excessively overheated. Most things are, I will say this, things are generally done in charity here. And I'll say that for people of all the people of all religions here, be you Jewish, Christian, Muslim, everyone, even people who are ultra conservative and ultra orthodox, be they secular, liberal, as far as being a decent, nice, not a big being obnoxious behind goes, that is the overwhelming majority. They are very blunt. People will respect people's rights and the right to be a trad Catholic and a Christian, in principle at least, though that being said, every now and again you do hear stories of one of these people who are obnoxious. I'll say this, I've walked the Via Dolorosa many times. I walked by Orthodox Jewish people doing so many times. I've walked by Muslim people doing so many times. I haven't been spat on once. I've had people interrupt me as I was doing the stations and trying to sell me stuff. That has happened. But it's not happened to me personally. A lot of what you hear about in social media is blown out of proportion. That being said, I have had people tell me it does happen. It's not entirely fake news, but it's blown out of proportion. Think about where you're from. Think about some news here, that it does happen there. It's sensationalized. It's not great, but it just gets blown out of proportion. It is not your daily occurrence in life. That is basically what is going on in Jerusalem, if you're a trad Catholic. Honestly, when people found out I had SSPX leanings in the trad community, those were actually the only people who really seemed to care, be very upset with the fact that I'm an SSPXer. Most people do not care. Most people do not. Otherwise, like Orthodox Jewish people, I've had Orthodox Jewish people telling me they want me to make Aliyah because they think I'm a great guy, essentially Jewish immigrating to Israel, even though I do not have a drop of Jewish blood or identify as Jewish anyway. And for the record, this was after they are fully aware that I'm a trad Catholic. And the context of the conversation was very much, they knew I was not going to convert to Judaism to do it. And they would never do that. They They're just most people here are overwhelming majority Jewish, Christian, Muslim, period, full stop, are decent people. Most Jewish people are not going out of their way, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating this, but I see this sensationalization of it in the news and on Instagram. Most Jewish people are not interested in attacking people because they are Christian. Most Muslim people are not terrorists. There's definitely this dislike and tension among people here, and to be fair, I'm coming at this as someone who's a Westerner and outsider to all the infighting and bickering that is going on. And there definitely are people on both who give cause for these stereotypes to be created to begin with. That being said, that's the majority, and most of the trads here are including, and there are SSPX aligned trads who flat out told me they kind of just wish they were just SSPX, and that the SSPX has the right of it, and that they're the future of the church, full stop. That one was told to me by someone who was a self-described proud Israeli Jew, who is also Catholic faithful to tradition. Another issue now that being said, there is one issue I do have concern about with some of the trads here, is that the people who want the trads who are more very liberal, i.e. the ones who were just TLM but are full on into Vatican II wokeness, and say, how dare you criticize Fiducius Book Zero disobedient to the Pope? How dare you say you believe in outside the church is no salvation? Oh, you're a museum Catholic, but I still love the TLM, and therefore I'm traditional. Those people here do tend to dominate the rhetoric in the trad community. Thankfully, there are others who quietly will say otherwise. And I will say this, a lot of them are not locals. They do try to keep the peace in other matters, though, which I think is certainly a good thing. When I say keeping the peace, in this context, I want to be clear because of all the news, I mean like in a parish context. Like, I mean we're talking bickering, not violence, to be entirely clear. That is one of the main problems. There's also seems to be debate among some people who have moderate trad sympathies. I wouldn't call them trads, but they have moderate trad sympathies. And there's the question of whether or not they can also celebrate Jewish holidays as well as traditional Catholic holidays. Again, this is not all of them, by any stretch. That being said, there are some who have that approach, and they have the best. Even though clearly we've already had church councils on this matter that say not to do so, but they do come at it from a good place, and I want to be fair to that because they would get it from both criticizes for both trad as well as Orthodox Jews on this matter for mixing both religions. That being said, their motives from it are A, they want to give due respect and honor to the Jewish heritage. As someone who is a convert who did have to give up a lot of traditions, if you're cradle Catholic and you're not raised Protestant and you come from a very Protestant religious background like I do, there's things I've had to give up, and that was hard. Like, what does it mean when Remembrance Day comes around for me? I can't attend cenotaph services back home, as I've said on this channel before. I cannot do that. How do you do that? How do you interact with people and share your own faith in a way that is both effective and respectful to people? That is also a concern that one of them has. That being said, traditional Catholicism, even though it's a small group here, and I think if anyone takes a serious look at a lot of their traditional missions back home, traditional Catholicism here is not aside from a few things, it is not an ideological monolith. Around here, it tends to gravitate with the TLM being the center with everything. Certainly more my context, it's more traditional doctrine is more important, and TLM is part of that. Here it's very more TLM only. that makes any sense. It's more of a diocesan TLM community than a traditionalist community. Or there definitely are rad trads there. And that might be the better option for some people. But I'm just giving or sharing the responses what other people have had here. But again, so to sum up, the traditional community here is more diocesan TLM than trad. I think a lot of them would describe themselves as that themselves. No, a lot of them would flat out say I'm a traditionalist Catholic, and certainly, but they would gravitate more towards liturgical matters than doctrine. 2, you have Palestinians and Israelis, both who are very proud of their heritage. The Fraternity of St. Peter Priests, in my experience, at least tries to and does a moderately good job of keeping the peace between them, though people of Jewish ancestry and of Jewish heritage seem to be in the majority here among the trads, and they have there's a lot of cultural differences as what does it mean, and there's a lot of grappling with what does it mean to be both culturally and ethnically Jewish as an Israeli, but not religiously, and what does that mean? And you get it from both ends, both from wider Israeli society and within the community itself. And I would say there's grappling with that more than anything else is how I would describe it. It's a lot of Israelis think it's kind of strange that you do that, but most of them would say, whatever, that's strange, and they'd be okay with it. Within the community, there's a lot of concern, but there's also a lot of boldness and courage about sharing their faith as well. And unfortunately, you do occasionally get a small minority of people who are just obnoxious, just like you do. But you get that everywhere, in every religion, in every country. Finally, there is the occasional SSPX presence. SSPX comes in about once a year on pilgrimage, and you really have to coordinate with them if you want to go to Mass with them. I emailed them, what's their schedule? I said, okay, I'm going to Mass then. And then eventually when I showed up for Mass, they had apparently sent me an email saying they already celebrated Mass early and sent me an email that were going to celebrate Mass early. You really need to coordinate with the SSPX and be very firm saying, look, I need to know when Mass is, because I couldn't have attended the SSPX Mass once I got the email. I was already in a class. So I would say if you come here and you're not with an SSPX group, and you want to go to an SSPX Mass, like if you're here to study, I would coordinate with them. I would coordinate with them, and I would say, look, Mass needs to be at such and such time. I need to plan this out in advance. That is something I would be very clear on. Thankfully, the priest waited for me and I did go to confession with an SSPX priest. It'll be my last SSPX sacrament for a while I am here, unfortunately. That being said, I will say this, I do have regular access to Eastern Catholic churches here, and I have to say, Eastern Catholics in Jerusalem, the Holy Land, are amazing people. It's not, at least for me, not a lot of bickering, very, very reverent liturgy. It's the calmness you would expect from a woke, at least it's the calmness of ideal of a woke parish that at least they pretend they have, but also the beauty of reverence and liturgy, and they do take the faith seriously, even if they're not always 100% fully traditional. They're more moderately conservative, though they do have you could say they have traditional leanings. That being said, I would say they are very culturally Christian as well. In some ways, I put it this way, I don't think they would be able to stand coming to North America and keeping the faith there if they weren't surrounded by a Christian culture. Would be my one criticism of them. Mind you, a lot of them would say the same thing about themselves, and they say that, and that's why we stay here in Jerusalem, etc. But yeah, to sum up, if you are a Trad and SSPX, you're SSPX, or if you're Fraternity of St. Peter, and a Sedevacantist, if you came here, you would almost really not be treated poorly by anyone if they found out you're traditional Catholic, unless you're completely obnoxious. Being deeply religious, even having some religiously fundamentalist views, to use an impolite term, is pretty well socially acceptable here. You wouldn't be the only one by a long stretch. You wouldn't even be the most radical. Sacraments are actually moderately decently accessible. You have TLM if you want that, or Eastern Rite churches. And worst case scenario, you have SSPX coming pilgrimage maybe once, maybe twice a year, though my gosh, you need to coordinate really closely with them and hammer down when Mass is going to be and be very clear. I can only make this Mass. That would be that. The trad community here, their internal problems, it's I almost want I'm glad I mentioned it, but I also know some nutty person is going to blow every problem with the wider community out of proportion. Look, it's largely, it's from what I understand, the trad, I'll say this, the biggest problems the trad community gets is they're afraid that some woke person will try to invoke traditionis custodes from the Vatican. You'll get some woke lord with that, and for that reason, they do not advertise when and where their masses are, which is why I'm not saying where that mass is. If you are interested, look me up at Instagram, DM me, and I'll try to put you in touch if you really want to go. There's way more concern with that than with with Israeli government or even Israeli society treating them poorly for being trad Catholic Christians, who are also most of whom tend to be Jewish. And that tends to be more of the problem. And even then, it's like the occasional obnoxious civil servant. You want to be extra cautious just to be safe, to avoid the occasional nut, which is something unfortunately that happens everywhere. But yeah, that's essentially what it's like living in Jerusalem as a traditional Catholic. If you're a traditional Catholic and would like a degree and say biblical archaeology or something, I would definitely recommend coming here. 100%. I think we need more trad Catholics doing that stuff. I think we need more trad Catholics getting out of the traditionalist bubble and to share Catholic tradition with a wider community and a wider audience. I think we need more traditionalist Catholic voices in biblical archaeology. I think we need more traditional Catholic voices in the world of apologetics. And so I would definitely recommend, if you're watching this in your trad Cath, study for a year in Jerusalem. That is my honest opinion. You're almost certainly not going to be treated poorly by anyone unless you treat people poorly yourself. Is going to be my honest reaction. Anyway, God bless. Have a great day. If you get a chance to check out an SSPX chapel in real life, please do so. Anyway, God bless and have a great day. Hail Mary, full of grace, Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for sinners now and at the hour of death. Amen. Nomine Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti. Amen.